we're going to talk about linear pairs and adjacent angles and what makes them linear pairs and what makes them adjacent angles. And if it could be neither of those things, so we just call it neither. But first we need to talk about what an adjacent angle is. Adjacent. Can you guys see that? Okay. Adjacent angle. What's an adjacent angle? What's an adjacent angle? Do you guys remember? An adjacent angle, or adjacent angles rather, are two angles that share a ray or have one ray in common. Literally, adjacent angles mean next to each other. Okay, but we can't just leave it as next to each other, because if we leave it as next to each other, we can say that this and this. Okay, this and this are adjacent angles. Yeah, they're next to each other, but they're not officially adjacent angles because there's no rays overlap. That makes sense? Like realistically, what it's going to be, let's see if it works this time around. They would have to, like, the rays would have to overlap and coincide with each other. So it would have to be like where one ray is right there and one ray is right there on top of each other. Does that make sense? Those are adjacent angles. Not that. Those are not adjacent angles in terms of geometry. They're next to each other, but not officially adjacent angles. Okay? All right. And then linear pair. Linear pair. Two angles are a linear pair. By the way, pair meaning two. Okay, linear meaning line. Okay, if they're adjacent, they're adjacent. If they're adjacent and form a line. Okay, that's kind of a layman's terms. Form a line. There's a more specific definition, but we can just do it that way. They have to be adjacent, though, to be a linear pair. If they are not adjacent, they cannot be a linear pair at all. Okay? Even if they form a line, they still cannot be a linear pair if they're not adjacent. So adjacent first, then linear pair. Okay. Here we go. Number one. Are these, all I want you to do right now, we're going to describe the angle in as many ways as possible. I just want you to describe it in the best way possible. So if they are just adjacent angles, just say adjacent. If they are linear pairs, okay, say that they're linear pairs. Don't say they're linear pair and they're adjacent. Okay? Linear pair implies the fact that they are already adjacent. That makes sense. Just another way to say it. And if they're neither of those, they're just neither. Okay, so the first one. Are they adjacent is the first question. If they're adjacent, they share a common ray. Is one ray shared between both? In this case, no. One ray is not shared between both. And you can tell that, by the way, a way to get you to remember how to do it is tracing the angles. Okay? Is there a ray that overlaps? Is there any red or green that overlap besides the vertex? No. That means they're not adjacent. If they're not adjacent, they're also not a linear pair, which means they're neither in this case. Okay? They're just neither. It's going to get more familiar as we go through more and more pictures of it, hopefully. Okay? So number two, are they adjacent? First question. They are. They share a common ray. And if we draw it in, the ray that's shared in common is that second one I just drew, or this first one where they overlap, right? 1 and 2 are specifically adjacent angles, yes. Do they form a linear pair? That's actually a harder question for this one. Do they form a linear pair? Do the red and green make that straight line? No, that means they do not form a linear pair. So this is just adjacent. Now that one's hard to see. They're just adjacent. Realistically, what you need to do in your head is you need to look at it and you need to delete all of that. Okay, you need to like be able to delete all of that and just focus on the red and the green when you're looking at the picture. Delete that straight line. The straight line is there to see if you can visualize it. Okay, that's why it's put in there. Okay. So that's just adjacent. Okay. Next one. Are they adjacent? Do they share a ray? That ray, right? They share a ray. Do they form a line? Yes, that means they're a linear pair. To be a linear pair, they have to be adjacent. Okay. Number 4. Are they adjacent? Do they share a common array and common? Do red overlap? No, that means they're neither. In this case, there's actually a fancy name for those. Those are called vertical angles, and we're going to talk about that in a few. Okay. Number 5, adjacent. Yes, adjacent. They share a common ray. Linear pair. No, forms a right angle. But they are adjacent. By the way, those have a special name too. They're called complementary. If their measures add to 90 degrees. We'll learn about that later in this chapter as well. Supplementary linear pairs. If two angles are linear pairs, it implies that they're supplementary. However, supplementary angles are not necessarily linear pairs. Okay, number 6, linear adjacent first. Yes, they share this ray. Linear pair. That is not a line. This one's just adjacent. 7, numbers 1 and 2. Adjacent? Linear pair? No, so we just call them adjacent. Number 8, adjacent? Dramatic pause. No, these are neither. Dramatic pause and funny look. They're playing a relay. A row relay, where they do a question and pass back. Pass part of the question back. They only do part of it. Anyways. So 1 and 2. Adjacent? Linear pair? Linear pair. Okay, here's the deal. Take a few minutes. Representing it in a different way. Read those and work on those guys right now. Okay, talk to yourself. A strong recommendation while you're doing it, draw on the picture. Label the picture. Trace the picture. Do something with the picture. Touch the picture. Do something. Don't just look at it. Okay? Because if you're just looking at it, chances are you won't really get it. Okay, what angle forms a linear pair with AMC? Well, let's answer this. AMC is this one. A way to determine one that makes a linear pair with that is to just extend one of the rays, okay, so that you match it up with another angle that makes a straight line. So I would say extend this ray, you could, okay, which would make this angle right there. And that's the same. A second set, there's a second one, is up here, and I say extend this ray. If I extend this ray, that means this angle right here that's left is then a linear pair. Angle CME or angle EMC. Okay? That make more sense for those of you guys that can. That's not easy. Honestly, about 3/4 of the students in CandA at the beginning do not know how to answer that question. Okay? Which means that question is likely to be on exam to demonstrate that you actually learned something while you're in here. Okay? So make sure you know how to do something just like that. I apparently wrote E instead of G. It should be CMG. CMG or GMC. Thank you. I highlighted J. or G. Okay. Do CME, so I'm going to erase that, scribble all over again. Do CME, and EMJ, do those form a linear pair? Yes. You know, because. Okay, Dad. What else say if you, or okay, Mom, if you just said yes because. Anyways, yes because why is really what we want, right? Because why fills in the blank. Because CME and angle EMJ are adjacent. And technically, the second part, we'll get more specific later on. Ray MC and Ray MJ are opposite rays. We don't need to be super specific yet, but we'll get super specific later. We'll revisit this stuff. Okay. Name two angles that are adjacent to EMG. By the way, there's a lot of angles that are adjacent to the angle EMG. There are lots. So if you want to know the answer, I'm going to trace them and say them. I'm not going to write them down because I would have to write down too many. GMJ is one of them. Okay. Notice how GM is shared. Another one would be GMK. A third one would be GMA. Right? There's lots. Lots. We could keep going. We could go EMC. We go EMA. And that's all of them. Okay? Lots. And 13. JMG. 13, two angles that form a linear pair. One angle would be CMG. The other angle would be AMJ. Or the reverse. By the way, if this is hard for you without seeing all the colors, bring different colors. Okay? Or if you're like, dang it, I need colors to help me out with this and I don't have them, say, hey, Mr. Showalter, can you give me two pens that are different colors so I can see it better? Even when we're taking a quiz or a test, I'll be like, sure. You know what I'm saying? Because I care about you that much. 14, my answer is just lots of them. It's the same kind of way as 12. Okay? It's just, there's a whole lot of stuff. Okay, what I want you to do right now, before you leave, I want you to answer these 6 questions right now. Just refresh your memory on which one is linear pair, adjacent, or neither. I'll show you the answer. Before I show you the answers,